What's up, you guys? Welcome to today's video. I already know that I'm gonna get hate for this video, but in the spirit of full transparency of how I did my prison time and things that I had to do in order to survive, today's video is about how I manipulated guards to move into a different dorm. So I feel like this is gonna be kind of a long story time, but every time I say that, the video is like 12 minutes. But if you are new here, my name is Jess. I'm a recovering addict who served time in prison. I will leave more information about my journey and my story in the description box down below. So you just click on that thing down there. All of my social media platforms, including Patreon, Instagram, all that stuff, my podcast, everything is always linked in the description box down below. Let's just get right into this today. My shirt says troublemaker, in case you're wondering. I thought it was appropriate for today's video. Let me just remind all of you that we are talking about prison. I'm not talking about college. I'm not talking about summer camp. I'm not talking about high school. I'm talking about prison. And there are certain things that you have to do just to be able to survive. All of that includes not associating with certain people, being respectful, sticking to yourself, and sometimes manipulating staff. It's an inevitable part of prison life, is manipulation on both sides. You know, like guards tell us all the time, yes, we'll bring you toilet paper, and then they don't. It is usually very clear us versus them, meaning staff versus the inmates. It's usually always that way. Sometimes inmates have to do what they feel is best for them to keep themselves safe. Now, I'm not the kind of person to check in anywhere, check into PC. So if I wasn't able to get out of the situation, then I would have just dealt with it. But let me just walk you through how I was able to manipulate a staff member to get out of a certain dorm that I didn't want to be in. Let's start with why I was moved to a dorm in the first place. So when I was in prison, that was the first time that I was given access to legal books. And I freaking studied my ass off, you guys. I didn't understand Arkansas state law. I still kind of don't, but I wanted to see if I could find a loophole to be able to file a motion to get back the money that the jail took from me. So when I first was arrested, I had like almost $5,000 in cash, meth, and a gun, and my car. All of that was seized. That was seized separately. That was seized on the scene the minute I was arrested. If you are arrested for possession with intent to deliver, or delivery charges or things like that, things of that nature involving selling, your property can be seized. So my car was seized, everything was seized, cash was seized, all the property in the car, everything gone. Phones gone, everything. They took everything. However, the cash that I had in my pocket was seized at the jail, and because it was seized separately, I was trying to study the law to see if there was some way that I could get back the money that was in my pocket. Now, that was only $300, but $300 goes a long way in prison. So I thought, what else do I have to do besides study the law and try to file a motion to be able to get back the $300 that the correctional officers took from me and that eventually handed over to investigators in intake when I was arrested, because they followed me there to try to interrogate me, but I was under the influence and my interrogation ended up taking place the next morning. The interrogation was very brief. I told them in my sweet little angel way, kidding, I told them to go themselves, and I was taken back to my cell because I was under the influence and I'm very confrontational and I wasn't in my right mind. I didn't have the change of heart. Like, the person that you guys see today is not the person that I used to be. I was a really crappy person. I was confrontational. I was violent. I was erratic. I was so many things. I never want to sugarcoat that. I don't want to sugarcoat who I used to be. I was not a good person by any stretch of the imagination. I just wasn't. I was a really troubled individual. So I found paperwork to be able to file that motion to get back the $300. I figured it out, got it done, filed that motion with Sebastian County, and I was able to get a court date to try to fight back for this $300. I'm gonna fight for it. It's mine. I want it. You took everything else. I'm gonna fight for it, right? So, because I had nothing else to do, I'm in prison. So they get me a court date, and the prison has to transport me back to Sebastian County, which is the worst thing. After you're in prison, you don't want to go back to the freaking county jail. County jail is a lot harder than prison, in my personal opinion. Maybe other people's opinions differ, but prison is better than county jail. County jail, you just sit there, you're just there waiting. You don't know what's gonna happen to you. You can't do anything. You can't go anywhere. Rec yard isn't a yard with grass. It's like a cement hole. So they transported me back to Sebastian County, which I'll explain later. I didn't actually go in front of a judge, but I was just on the court docket or whatever. That prison had a policy that if you are transported back to court for any reason, even if it is just overnight, that you were to pack up all of your belongings, pack up your locker, put everything into a buggy, is what they call it, and you're to take it to intake and they will hold your property if you return to the prison alive. If you pass away in county jail, then they just throw your stuff away. So they let that be known also. If you die, you die. When you also, let me throw this in here, when you do go to prison, you sign like documentation, like, oh, if I pass away while I'm here, this is who I want you to contact. I want to be cremated or buried or whatever. Like, you make burial plans when you go to prison. I always just kind of like, not ignored them, but I tried to just get past that as quickly as I could. I'm like, yeah, just call my mom, sign here. And I didn't want to read that because I don't even want to put those negative thoughts in my mind. I don't want to put that negative energy here. I'm already in a prison intake room. I don't want to talk about my death, okay? Like, this is already the worst day ever. So I always just kind of sped right past that, and I never wanted to really talk to him about it. I'm like, whatever you think, man, just clickety clack, sign, which is, I don't recommend. That's just mentally how I got through it. So that prison made me pack up all my stuff. I was at that time in an open dorm, and I lost my spot in that open dorm. I lost my bed because they need to fill that with someone else. Now, if I return safely to court, they'll put me in a different housing unit. They'll put me on a different bed, what have you. So I go to court. I ended up not seeing the judge. Somebody came and served me a paper that says, you won, you get the $300, we'll give you a check, whatever. I'm in the hallway and the sheriff is like, just sign here for your $300. And I'm like, what? I won? I got the $300 back? Word, thank you. Like, I wanted to hug the sheriff. He's like, can you just sign the freaking paper? But that's how grateful I was for $300 because I was broke. I was starving in prison. I could barely hustle enough to get hygiene products. So I'm like, hell yeah, I'll sign that. And I gave it back to him. Then I had to do that thing where I got to call somebody on the outside and get them to cash this check for me and then bring back the money. But anyway, so I returned to the prison. I had won my little case, got my little $300 back. I was super freaking grateful for it. And in intake, the intake officer hands me my housing unit and my assigned bunk and everything. And I looked at it and I'm like, fuck, like, this is not a barracks I want to be in. You know, I already knew what time it was. I already knew the people that was in this barracks, and one of the girls just didn't like me. She just didn't. She had a problem with one of my friends, and we had kind of gone back and forth, and I already knew that, like, as soon as I walk in there, it's not going to be a good time. So I'm like, oh, and I'm thinking, like, how can I manipulate this situation? How can I get out of this? How can I get out of this? I'll throw down if I have to throw down. But when this took place, I was like 6 months to the door. So my daughter was born. I'm just trying to go home. I'm 6 months out, dude. If I get into a fight with this chick that doesn't like me, I'm gonna lose my good time. Like, I already know this is gonna be all bad for me. So I'm walking there, and prison hallways are long. They are long, and I'm walking as slow as I possibly can because I don't want to go in that dorm. I already know that she's going to give me problems. I already know that I'm going to have to fight her. At some point, it's going down. So I got buzzed into the bubble, and there were 6 dorms in this bubble, so I got to get buzzed into the bubble, and then I got to get buzzed into my housing unit. So I'm just standing there. Now, I was really happy with the officer that was on shift that night because he's fair. I can work with a CO that is firm but fair because you know where you stand with him, and he always had my respect. If I know where I stand with you and you're not just gonna come to work and treat me like crap one day and then try to be nice to me the next, that's the shit I don't do. But everyone knew where they stood with this guy. I was a little bit relieved to see him on duty, and I walk in and there's only one open bed. It's not on a wall, it's in the middle. They had bunk beds all around the wall. That's where you wanna be. You wanna be on the wall. But then they had like single man cots in the middle. That's where they wanted to put me, on a single man cot in the middle too. So that's like not ideal. But that wasn't really my issue. I'll sleep there if I gotta sleep there. My issue was there was one person that didn't like me and her whole crew was in here, right? So I look at the bed and I decided there's only one way out of this dorm. Either we're fighting and we're going to the hole, or I've got to somehow try to manipulate my way out of this. I have to outsmart the system here. So this is just what I had to do to be able to get home on time to get my daughter. That was my focus on everything. There was a lock on my locker. I took my pen and I shoved my pen in there and snapped it off to break the lock. Now, the guard is firm but fair, and I know that if he thinks my locker is broken, he's not gonna make me stay there. I know that. I know I can manipulate the situation, so I on purpose broke it. And then I walked right back up to him. The whole time these chicks are talking mad crap to me because they had, like I said, they had a problem with one of my friends and it was just prison drama. I walk up to him and I'm like, hey, excuse me, I hate to bother you, but there's only one bed in this unit and the lock is broken. You know, I don't really know what to do. Can you maybe get me a different lock? And he looks at me and he's like, just give me a minute, Kent, give me a minute. And I'm like, okay. And I stood there for a minute and I'm like, oh, please. I knew better than to ask specifically for a new housing assignment. I knew not to do that, you know? So he pops the door, he comes in, he's like, where's your rack? And I'm like, it's 13, it's right there. And he looks at it and he goes, oh, all right, just be patient with me. Go to Chow if you want to go to Chow, and I'll get you a new housing assignment. And I was like, oh, you want me to move barracks? He's like, yeah, that's the only option. There's no other bed here, all right? So just please be patient with me. And I'm like, okay, I'll be patient. And that is how I had to manipulate to get out of that dorm. They want to fight me because I associated with people they didn't like, and that is the prison life. You know, they were gonna try to send a message and jump me, who knows when, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., maybe when I'm in the shower, who knows when they're gonna try to jump me, but they want to send a message to my friends, and that is prison life. So either I fight them and I go to seg, get my ass beat maybe because it's gonna be 6-on-1, or I manipulate the situation and I get a new housing assignment. That's the reality of prison. The old me would have just stayed there and fought them and gone to seg, and I probably would have lost because it would have been 6-on-1. The old me wouldn't have had a single care or worry in the world about going to seg, because I've been there many times. I've been in jail fights and prison fights, and I've been jumped on the street so many times. I'll throw down if I have to, but this was different. I got a kid waiting for me. I have to get out. So if I have to break a lock and manipulate a staff member to get out of that situation, then that's just what I have to do. And that's prison life. That's just the reality of what it is, you know? And I'm so grateful for my freedom. I'm so grateful that I don't have to do that anymore, or look over my shoulder anymore, or worry about someone else's drama that I'm in, you know, because I was the kind of person that if my friends had problems with you, I'm gonna be there for my friends, and then yell at my friends after we fight these people, you know? Like, I was always ride or die. That caused me so many problems because I was always loyal to the wrong people, you know? And now that I'm in my 30s, I don't even think like that anymore. My circle is so small that jank is a triangle. There's like no one in my life anymore, you know? I don't have a big circle. I'm never gonna be put in these situations again, but I'm so grateful that I experienced everything that I experienced, the good and more importantly, the bad, because rock bottom taught me more than success ever will. Those hard lessons and those failures, that taught me more about myself and the kind of person that I wanted to be than success ever will. That's why I firmly believe that success is a horrible teacher. Success tricks smart people into thinking that they can't lose. Failure is the best teacher. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this story time. I'm gonna end today's video here. As always, I love you guys. Stay safe, stay sober, whatever that looks like to you. And I will see you in my next one.